Delighted to have on the Friday Club Richard Johnson once again. Now, Richard, the last time I spoke to you on the Friday Club, it was all about the Tote Ten to follow, and you came up with what has turned out to be a pretty decent list. Shishkin, Sporting John, Abracadabras, Envoy Allen, Native River, Time Hill, Alaho, and then a few others that perhaps haven't quite delivered. Now, you do have the option to replace a couple of them. First of all, a little bit of a reaction to the list that you've created, how well or not well some have done, and your thoughts on who you might be wishing to take out.
Yeah, well, I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm sort of probably not got the worst list, because I would have thought, yeah, usually I'm not very good at this sort of thing.
I'm pretty much the worst.
But yeah, no, it's I usually find most of mine by Christmas aren't even still in training. They wait until next season. So yeah, no, it's great to see, obviously, the likes of Sporting John, that after his first run I was sort of scratching our heads a bit, but obviously it was great to him obviously come out and win at Sandown, and like you say, well, same as Native River and a few of the others. But yeah, I think hopefully going into the Cheltenham, I've got a few there with proper live chances. So yeah, unfortunately, definitely Desoy, he's obviously the one that, well, I'm disappointed. He obviously hasn't showed his form this year, and he's going to wait. He will wait till next year. So he's one we'll definitely have to take out. It's hard to know, but I suppose Everglow, he's in the Pertemps, but I suppose he's the one out of the lot as well that probably we'll swap for a different one as well. Okay,
so we'll take out Deffy and we'll take out Everglow. Who would you like to replace with? This will be interesting. So suggest who's impressed Richard Johnson this season.
I think it's Chacun Poussoir.
Yeah.
And
what do you think? Hurdle.
I know. Trying to find well, not find a good one, but
yeah, I guess you could go Monkfish, and that'll probably be a banker, won't it?
Well, yeah, but I think Sporting John was going to beat him, so I don't want to say that.
Sorry, I put my foot in it.
Exactly.
I was going to ask you which race Sporting John went for, because I think he is in the marsh.
Yeah, well, obviously at the moment it's up in the air, but I think he's it'll be a late decision probably, but I think I'll stick in Honeysuckle as well.
Honeysuckle, okay.
She's just she's a star.
So you've taken out Everglow and Deffy Desoy, and you put in Chacun Poussoir and Honeysuckle, two horses who are very close. Well, Chacun Poussoir obviously short, and Honeysuckle close to being favourite for the champion hurdle. Pretty good stuff then, Rich, on the Tote Ten to follow. Well done so far. Good luck for what happens at Cheltenham. Hopefully you guys don't get too far away from me, because I'm tailed off along with Kim Bailey and Oliver Sherwood at the moment, which is not good news. But let's focus on a few of your rides at Cheltenham. Sporting John, who you were quite excited about at the start of the season, albeit he obviously disappointed. It's great to see him come back at Sandown, and the way he dug in after the last, when Shan Blue got away from him at the last fence, showed great heart and tenacity. What's the race he's going to run in at the festival?
Well, that's the thing. Look, he's in both races. I think it'll be ground dependent, to be honest. Obviously, I would imagine we're looking at the forecast, but there's rain around for the next few days. But obviously, from sort of Sunday onwards, it looks pretty dry. So I would have thought that there's a fair chance he would go over the 3 miles. But look, obviously, he hasn't never run over 3 miles, but he won a point over 3 miles. But he hasn't run on the track over 3 miles yet. But everything he did at Sandown, he looks an out-and-out stayer. I was obviously, quite taken with him at Sandown, because he was careful over the first few fences, and he warmed up through the race. And, realistically, the McManus team were very, very good. They said go out and try to let him enjoy himself and see how we get on. There were nice instructions for me to let the horse do the best he could, but also not force him early on. And again, sort of the race came back to me, and he beat a very, very good field. So, I think, whichever race you go for as well, Monkfish is obviously in the 3 miles, Envoy Allen's in the 2.5. There's not an easy, I suppose, if one of those horses weren't to turn up or weren't to run, perhaps you'd be persuaded slightly by that as well. But I think probably there's an awful lot of other horses a little bit in the same predicament. But yeah, I think a 3 mile at the moment is probably where I'd be just leaning towards. But we'll see what the McManuses and Philip think the right thing is to do.
One horse I know you were keen to mention was Zanza, who has been, I think, beautifully handled the way that Zanza has progressed over fences in his this season in his novice races, and looks as if the Grand Annual is the plan, and obviously the Grand Annual now being run on the old course on the Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. Look, he is he was a very nice hurdler last year and ran in some good handicaps and ran well, but he's taken very well to fences, and look, it was all going really smoothly. He obviously ran really well behind All Mankind at Warwick, and then he went on and won, and he was impressive at Newbury, and I think, well, I'd like to think he'd have nearly won at Cheltenham, but unfortunately he jumped third last well and just landed a bit steep and unfortunately toppled over. But for him himself, he doesn't seem to have worried him at all. He scored the other day at Exeter and was very, very good, and he's plenty brave enough. So yeah, I don't think that's been a big issue. And and the only reason he hasn't run since then is because to avoid the very, very soft ground, which we've always thought he wants nicer ground rather than the horrendous ground we've had for the last three months. So yeah, I think he goes there with a big chance. Hopefully still an improving horse.
Richard, nothing warms the heart like an old hero coming back to maybe turn the clock back a few years. And dear old Native River will be turning the clock back, 3 years since he last won, or he won the Gold Cup. And obviously he's run some tremendous races in defeat in it. And he gave us, certainly fans of his, a bit of belief that it's not completely out of the question, judging by what he did at Sandown. How realistic are his hopes of actually winning the Gold Cup?
Well, obviously I'm slightly biased, but I was, I suppose I needed to be convinced as well, really. But at Sandown, I knew he'd run well, but I thought, when you got the likes of Bristol de May and Santini turning up, it's not. Yes, it's not the Gold Cup, but it's they were the best of the English, and for me, just his enthusiasm and the way he jumped, he really felt back to his sort of his best, really. And like I say, the way he won and the way he went away at the end, I don't think anyone could be disappointed or not slightly impressed by it. So, I think we know he's an out and out stayer. Again, if the ground is on the slower side, that will be a benefit. But he handles all sorts of ground. But yeah, I think for me, obviously Froden is in the race as well. I'm sure he'll be very, very positive. I'm sure there's going to be enough pace in the race. But he showed at Sandown as well. He doesn't have to make the running. So I think some people sort of almost think if he doesn't make it, he can't win. And going back to 2 years ago when he was fourth in the race, I definitely don't think the year after he won the Gold Cup, he was quite in the same form. He ran in the King George, he was third, but he was very slovenly all the way around. And in the Gold Cup, he just didn't seem to have that spark that we know he can do. But he still finished fourth. He still led them till after 3 out. Album Photo wasn't that far in front of him. So I think back on form, I'm a believer.
Well, it would be lovely to see, I have to say. To see the old boy doing what he did at Sandown was fantastic. And we wish you best of luck in the Gold Cup. A couple of things I just wanted to ask you before we close it off. Obviously, last year at Cheltenham, it was just before lockdown came in. And since then, crowds have been absent from the racecourse. And Cheltenham is obviously so closely linked to crowds and the roar, etc. What will that experience be like? I know that you've been doing it through the last year, but Cheltenham in particular, that will be strange, more so than anywhere else, won't it?
Yeah, I think, look, it's going to be a very different experience. Even just the time I have to leave home to get there usually is sort of the crack of dawn, because the traffic and it's just a huge event. But obviously this year it's going to be much, obviously very, very, very small number of people there. I don't think the racing actually will suffer. I think we found through the whole year when you're riding, you don't really what's going on around with crowds or you're always obviously concentrating on what's going on and the horses and all season. I don't feel that that's been an issue at all. I think the one thing that, you know, is always the huge thing about Cheltenham is, you know, when you are lucky enough to ride a winner, you know, when you pull up, you know, you almost get hit by that wave of noise, because I think you sort of somehow block it out, or you know, you're in the race in the moment, but when you finish, all of a sudden it seems to hit you and knock you over, and that'll be a big disappointment for, well, all of us lucky enough to ride a winner. And you know, for the lads that have never ridden a winner at Cheltenham before, it's, you know, I'm lucky enough to have experienced that. But for those lads that haven't, if they're good, you know, if they're lucky enough to ride a winner this year, you know, it's going to be a bit of a different experience for them. But I think, again, you know, it is, for us, it's the best 4 days racing of the year, and it's where we all want to be. And there will still, you know, there'll be nerves, there'll be, you know, apprehension, you know, all that won't go away. And hopefully for people watching on TV, the most important thing is they see, you know, the best racing, you know, and get a great thrill out of it too.
And Richard, the last thing I'd like to ask you about is the Jockeys Championship. And shame, obviously, you're not part of the battle for the title this year, but it is nonetheless a very interesting finish to the season, possibly with Brian Hughes, Harry Skelton and Harry Cobden all involved. What are your own thoughts, as someone who's obviously been there and done it before, on who's going to emerge successful?
Yeah, no, well, I wish I was in the mix. Yeah, we haven't had quite the season we hoped for, but you know, that's just the way it is. But yeah, I think it's fantastic, really. And I think it just shows the next generation that are coming through as well. And you know, Dan and Harry Skelton, you know, their team has been in fantastic form all season, and you know, they're getting sort of stronger and stronger. You know, and Harry Cobden, obviously, you know, he's sort of definitely, you know, sort of growing as a jockey, and you know, the Paul Nicholls, you know, team have been again a fantastic year all season, and they're both two big stables that be behind jockeys. So you know, Brian Hughes, obviously, look, he's in front at the moment, and that's where if I could be, that's where I'd want to be. You want to be in front with people chasing you rather than doing the chasing. But again, it you know, he rides for a lot of trainers up in the north, so it's a slightly different dynamic, really. He rides winners for lots and lots of people, and you know, the two Harrys, you know, their majority of their winners all come from their main stables. So I suppose it just depends on how, if Dan Skelton or Paul Nicholls, if they got a lot of horses still to run, you know, but if they run out of horses, then you know that's when it's going to get harder for the two Harrys. But it'll be an interesting battle, and like you say, the last 6 weeks of the season is always quite busy. Evening racing starts, and you know, you've got Cheltenham, you've got Aintree, you've got Ayr. So it's sort of a very busy time, and it'll be frustration not to be involved, but yeah, very interesting to watch.
Well, I can understand that. It must be very frustrating for someone who's been as involved at the sharp end of the championship for such a long period of time. But, you know, next season, Rich, we'll be talking about it again. So next season. And thank you so much for sparing your time. Well done with your selections on the Tote Ten to follow so far. Good luck at Cheltenham with that. But more importantly, good luck competing at the Cheltenham Festival. Wish you all the best. And a little bit of bias to say, I really hope that you and Native River go very close in the Gold Cup. It will certainly warm our hearts.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Rishi.